Welcome to the ACS Technical Advisory Board podcast series, where we talk all things tech including data, cyber, AI, blockchain, and Internet of Things. Meet your host, Dr. David Cook, Vice President of the Australian Computer Society's Technical Boards. David is a technology advocate dedicated to advances and progression of computing and human-computer interaction. In today's episode, David will be talking to Danielle Marie, founder of Women in the Digital Economy, Web3 educator, and an ACS Blockchain Committee member. Join us as they discuss teaching blockchain fundamentals, cryptocurrencies, and the future of blockchain.
Today, we are talking to Danielle Marie. Danielle is a Web3 educator. She is a founder of Women in the Digital Economy, and she serves on the ACS National Committee for Blockchain. Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Now, Danielle, you have taught literally hundreds of people how to understand blockchain technology. What is the hardest thing for the students over in general? What is the hardest thing for them to grasp about blockchain?
I think the hardest thing is that there's so many layers and so much complexity that it's hard to kind of really grasp that at the end of the day, it's just a way that we are storing data and transactions using cryptography. Once they kind of take away all of the big jargon and they get to really understand the difference, then they kind of have that aha moment. But in the beginning, I think it's just that there's so much information and a lot of big jargon and all these different chains. They have a hard time just looking at it from a simplistic view. So
if we pick on one particular area, the popular part of blockchain, it always comes down to cryptocurrencies, right? And inevitably, the conversation always ends up plummeting to something around Bitcoin. I don't want to ask you about Bitcoin, so don't tell me about Bitcoin. I was hoping you could share with the audience some ideas about stable coins and what blockchain means in those terms.
Stablecoins just is essentially on-chain rails for us to be able to facilitate transactions. Being able to avoid the volatility. So, for example, if you're a business and you want to be able to accept transactions on-chain, accepting that for two reasons why you may not accept it, say on the Bitcoin network, is a couple of different things. One is the volatility of the price, but then two, the cost of using the network. And without going down the rabbit hole of understanding the cost of the fees of the network, which Bitcoin is quite expensive, that's why we don't want to use it, because one is the transaction fees and then two, the volatility. So stable coins have been built primarily mostly on top of Ethereum, and they are a stable currency, and we're just using the rails of the blockchain, but so reduced fees, and then you don't have to worry about the volatility.
In terms of other forms of related to crypto technology, I suppose, there was a lot of talk a year and a half ago about non-fungible tokens. Suddenly non-fungible tokens became the big thing, NFTs. And now I guess we're moving away from that a little bit, and we're talking about semi-fungible tokens and the fungibility part of it and so on. So conversation's going away from cartoon drawings of monkeys and stuff, and now we're talking about things like medical healthcare records and things like that. What's the future for blockchain? Where do you think it's going to go in terms of serious application?
The conversation of using what NFTs are as just a protocol have always been there. It's just that the mainstream media likes to focus on the things that get clickbait, and clickbait is 69 digital art sold for $69 million. People are clicking on that more than they are use a token to store your health records. Like, how many people are going to click on that? So the use cases have always been there, but the narrative definitely is focusing around real world tokenization of assets. One of the challenges that we have with real world assets is that how do we Once it's on chain, say if I had a property and it was on chain and you were to buy it from me, we could know that I owned that property and I was transferring it to you. But it's getting that data on chain from the off chain world, and how do we verify, how do we trust that data? And that's where a lot of different projects are trying to work on. How are we going to take off chain data on chain? Once it's there, we can fully trust it.
So you serve on the ACS National Committee for Blockchain. You're one of the leading people on that committee. What do you think are the big challenges coming up from an Australian perspective? What are the things that we need to do more of, I suppose, in the blockchain space?
It's a good question. I tend to live in my little bubble of education and community building, but I do know Blockchain Australia. They just had a policy forum, speaking with regulatory bodies. There's lots of lawyers that are coming together, exchanges to find ways that we can help educate people on how to participate in the ecosystem, but it is a little bit of the wild, wild west, kind of back with the dot-com boom and, all these internet stocks. So we do need a bit more regulation, and the industry is screaming for that. So Australia is just trying to be quite proactive on how we can work with the regulatory bodies to get a better framework for businesses to be able to implement.
So someone said to me the other day, they said, look, blockchain, I completely trust my Commonwealth Bank app on my phone. I completely trust my Westpac financial statements because of blockchain. And that's what makes me trust them, because I know that the amount of money that says on my mobile phone is actually the amount of money I do, or perhaps in my case, don't have in my account, right? Do you think we'll ever move on to sort of other trusted systems with blockchain, such as online elections? Do you think blockchain will ever get to that stage where we'll be able to do that?
I hope so. My answer is that I don't think it's not because the tech's there. It's because the people in power don't want that. They want to be able to control and manipulate. But that's just my perspective. But once you create a whole bunch of transparency and everything's on chain, there's no way for them to cover things up or to hide things. So they'll probably avoid it at all cost if they can.
So we've already touched on cryptocurrency, but I just wonder, blockchain represents a whole new era of technology skill now. I mean, people 20 years ago were not learning about blockchain. People were not studying about blockchain. You're a key educator in that area. How many more people do we need to learn about blockchain? What are the gaps that we need to do in terms of education?
That's a difficult question because you don't even know what you don't know. And I listen to a podcast, Web3 Academy, and they're amazing. And sometimes I'll be listening to, a project that they're interviewing, and I'm like, wow, I never thought of using blockchain for that particular use case. So it really takes a lot of creative thinking to be thinking about how can we take this technology and solve a problem within a particular industry. And so quite often, that's what our courses that I teach are about, getting you to, first you need to understand the technology so that you can actually think strategically on how it could be implemented. And so I think that's the main thing, is that people just need to first understand it, and then they can start thinking creatively on how they could apply it to various industries.
So here in the ACS, we're very, very big on professionalism. And I wanted to ask you, if you could change one thing about the way in which blockchain gets applied and used, or one thing about the way it perhaps doesn't yet get used, what would that one thing be?
For usability and more user adoption, we're in an industry where everybody is so used to everything being quick and fast and easy. If you have to wait for a website to load more than 5 seconds, you're probably clicked off of it. Like, the whole Web2 ecosystem has kind of trained us to be this way. They forget, if you're as old as I am, that, I had to choose between the internet or the phone, and when I did connect to the internet, it was like like that's, it was slow and clunky. So I feel that people are won't use it until it's the same kind of user experience and a consumer level as the Web2 ecosystem. But that means that we need more people to be learning or upskilling themselves to apply the current skills that they have, but going and working within organizations that are looking to do Web3 activations so that they can start thinking about how can we kind of create products that are using blockchain but don't look or feel it.
Danielle, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
To find out more about how the ACS is powering Australia's technology brilliance, visit us at our website, Facebook or LinkedIn. Want to get involved with the ACS technical boards? Email us at tab@acs.org.au and tell us a bit about yourself. Join us for more thought leadership, ideas, and information through our other podcasts on the ACS YouTube, Facebook, or on LinkedIn.